All right, hello everyone. For today, we are gonna learn how to create functions. So just imagine if you have this report that you do on a regular basis, maybe on a daily basis or a monthly or on a weekly basis, and it's the same raw data that you receive and you process them, create a report out of it, whatsoever. But the idea is you receive a raw data on a regular basis and it's a report that you have to create on a regular basis. So therefore the steps are repetitive. And so for today, what we're going to do is we're going to wrap all those steps and create a function so that the next time you receive the new raw data, you can just load the data into your function and click one button and you can get that report clean and however you like it. Okay, so let's try to get started with this. All right, so on my desktop, I have this folder called sample. Inside it is another folder, and I have three files. Okay, so let's assume I'm doing this on a monthly basis, and the first file is called January, February, and let's look quickly what's inside of this data. Okay, so in my January file, I have four columns: ID, school, score, and data. So let's assume this is your raw data, and you want to create a report. And I don't really know what your steps, but I'm just gonna create some arbitrary report from this. Okay, so I'm gonna close this one now, and in fact, I'm gonna open a new file. That's where I'm gonna save my function. Okay, I'm gonna close this. Okay, so this file right here is where I'm gonna save my function. I'm gonna save this. I don't know where you want to save it. For me, I'm gonna save it where all I normally save that files. Okay, so I'm gonna name this one fx underscore data cleaner. So you could have your own organization. This is mine. Okay, so in here I'm gonna load up one of the data. Okay, all right, so I'm gonna go data and then get data from file. That was the CSV, so I'm gonna do CSV. Okay, so I'm gonna start with January, and let's assume this is gonna be my trial run. Okay, so that's my data right there. Transform data. All right. So right now let's assume this is your raw data, and I'm gonna create some arbitrary steps to show the final report of what I wanted. Okay. So as you can see in here, let's look at your on the right side corner. You have this applied steps. The first one is source. As you can see, the um the column header is on the first line, so that's why our second step is promote headers. And so this is kind of important for you to understand. When we loaded the January data, it just so happened that it loaded where the column headers are on row one. Okay, so therefore the first step that they wanted to do is to promote those headers so that they become column headers. And then the change type is always like a default step after all the headers are assigned. That's basically saying that the first row are integers, the second one are text, and you can see this data type in here. All right, so let's do some of the steps. Again, these are just arbitrary. Let's say I wanted to create a column for the date for month, and I'm just gonna duplicate this. I'm gonna put this somewhere here, okay, so I can see it clearly. I'm gonna change this one to month. I'm going to change the column name to month. So therefore, I need to grab the month name of these dates. And we already have these dates. I'm going to put that date over here so they're right next to each other. And so I'm going to highlight the column, right click, transform, and then under month, I want the month name. Okay, so in your applied steps, you just extracted the month. So that's one step. So I reordered, I renamed, I reordered, and then extracted the month. So those are how many steps now from source. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so you have 8 steps. Now let's say we wanted to create another column that says pass or fail. And so what it says is that based on your score, based on the score, if the score is below 70, it's a fail, otherwise it's a pass. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna duplicate this again. Okay, and then on this I'm gonna do pass fail, so that's the name of my column. And then I'm gonna say, actually I will delete this. I decided to okay, I decided to just do it a different way. Okay, let's say I made an error and I didn't really want to remove that, so I'm just gonna X that one out. I still have that. I still have the pass fail right now, but I realized I don't really want that. I made an error, so now I'm gonna just remove that under my steps. I still have the duplicated column. This is still wrong. I'm going to remove that. So we're back to this, okay? So now my next problem is I was just illustrating how to remove the steps, okay? Now, let's say you wanted to create a new column. So I'm going to go to add column, custom column, and I'm going to do assign a name here called pass fail, okay? And I'm going to say basically if this column right here, if this column score, if that column score, let's put some space, is less than 70, then write the word fail, else write the word pass. Okay, so, and then I'm going to say okay. All right, so now you have an additional column called pass fail. So let's assume those are the steps that this is the final product. And of course, you can go as extensive as possible, but this is just an illustration how to create the function. Okay, so let's say this is the last step. And so now I'm going to wrap all of these steps right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 steps into one function. So under home, in your ribbon, there's this advanced editor. Okay, and it will list all the steps that you have. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move this 2 steps down because I'm gonna name the name of my function. You need to enclose it in parentheses. So fx underscore, I'm gonna call it data cleaner, and you can name it however you want. If it makes sense, however it makes sense to you. All right, so fx data cleaner, that's the name of my function as a table. So small letter table, and then outside of parentheses, you put an equal sign and a greater than sign. So what is it saying is that this is my name of a function. I'm creating it as a table. But the problem is the source, this source right here that I have, all right, this source is coming from this first line. So I'm going to remove this because I want my function to be the new source, okay? All right. Okay, so now the first step is we promote the header. And where is that coming from? Well, it's from the source. But remember, we removed the source. So I'm going to remove this because that source would be replaced by our table. Okay, Control C, and then Control V. All right, so now we just created our function. So basically, we're connecting the name of the function to the first step. Okay, this particular one will throw an error, but I'm gonna explain to you why. All right, I'm gonna click done, and so now you have this function. I'm gonna rename this not January. I'm gonna rename this by double clicking, or you can go over here as well, and I'm gonna name it fx underscore data cleaner. So I know that this is my function. Okay, so you can save this. Okay, you can save this as a function, but for now, let's do a trial run. So I'm gonna load in the January function. So the first time we loaded January, it was just to use that data to process and use it to save the steps. So now I'm gonna go to home and go new source, and then it was a CSV file. So I'm gonna load January back in. All right, so this is my January, and we will see if, okay, so this is your file right now, okay? So I'm gonna go back to my function. So remember, this is the file, it's not processed yet. You don't have the month, you don't have the pass fail. So I'm gonna go back to my function, and inside this, there is a parameter, there's a drop down, and you can load up the file or the raw data that you wanted to process. I'm gonna click that and click invoke, and I will have an error, and I wonder why. So it says ID is not around, is not found. So let's look at January. Look at the January here. Remember when we were using the function, when we opened the file, the column names were not really on the column names, but on the first row. So that's probably why we have an error. So let's go back to your function. And this does not happen all the time, but let's go back to our function editor. We don't really need to promote the headers because the headers in January are already promoted. So we can just delete this, okay? Okay, so that step is not really necessary. So what we're gonna do is, now this is disconnected. So what we're gonna do is this promote headers table, which was the line before that, we're gonna delete that and we're gonna replace it with this FX cleaner so that we can make again a connection. So copy. All right. So just understanding a little quickly in this one. So this data FX data cleaner is the new source. Now on line 5, the new table is called change type. On line 6, the new column name, the new table name is duplicated column. But as you can see, that change type is the same as that change type. So really, you can see that connection. So this duplicated column on 6 is now on 7. That will be the new source. So that's why it's important to make a connection from one table to another after you do some sort of transformation. And I'm going to click done. Okay, so now my FX cleaner, I'm going to load up my January, invoke, and let me close this one. Okay, so when I invoke this, this is the new January file. Look at that. It created all those. It finished all the transformation was applied to our January table. In fact, let's load up February. Okay, and let's see if it works. Okay, I'm gonna load February. Okay, so now this is my February. I'm gonna use my data cleaner and load February, invoke, and this is my new February data. And of course, you can rename this as Feb report maybe. Okay, and then this first one is what did it? January report. Okay, all right. So now let's look, and then of course you can do the same thing with January. So the idea is we use the January file to do all the steps, and then we save the steps into a function. Now that you have a function, it will look like this. You can just pretty much load the new raw data and invoke them in here. Okay, now let's load this one up. Load, close and load. Okay, I'm just gonna do it as a connection because I don't really want to populate every single one. On the right side area, you will see all your queries. I don't really need to see the data cleaner. I just want my January report. So this is connection only. If you right click on that and right click and say load to, then if that's the table that you want, and then you can just load it. But if you notice, all right, so I accidentally loaded it somewhere here because I put my cursor somewhere not on A1, so that's why. So let's undo this. I don't know if I can actually undo that, but let me just remove that. Okay, so I'm gonna do that again. So I'm gonna put my cursor here on January report. Right click, load as a table, and that's my table. And if you want to load your February right next to it, just click on wherever you want it to get loaded. I'm gonna go to February report, load to table, and that's it. And alternatively, you can also load it on a different sheet if you want to. Okay, so I hope this helps. If you have any questions, please let me know.